a sign of an escalating investigation 2 months before the midterm elections. Now this is like October surprise territory.
Oh my
They
God.
say we're not supposed to do
God.
anything 60 days before an election. Okay, well, they just did. And they're likely going to keep doing it. I think it's possible Trump gets indicted. I don't know for sure.
How much did you want to bet that Tim has barely watched any of the January 6th hearings and he's gotten the majority of his information of it from the Daily Mail or from Andy No? That's pretty much what I would assume.
The midterm are.
As crime soars, according to the Washington Free Beacon, as crime soars, Democratic voters turn on left-wing prosecutors. Fetterman, are you serious? This is your example?
You know, we should have a review and make sure we're not incarcerating people who shouldn't be incarcerated or nonviolent offenders. You got to understand the politics of it. And it's brutal and it sucks. Me, as I stated, I'm not a revolutionary. I'm a reformer. I'd love to get through this system and see some real changes. We need to stop spending so much money on this trash when we have someone like arrested for a small amount of pot. Nah, I don't care about that, dude. That's not something I think is going to make us safer. So, careful what you say, Fetterman. Careful what you say. Because a third of our inmates, I don't think people are going to believe that you could release a third of our inmates and all of them would be just good people and nonviolent offenders. You are going to get black market operatives that have peripheral violence around them. You got it. I'm not going to play that game. As for the crime spree. 30 plus victims in Old Hickory neighborhood crime spree, Nashville, Tennessee. Yikes. Here's one. Obvious crime spree in Cobbs Creek ends with 2 men in custody, third person on the run. Yikes. Listen.
So Tim, being, a right-wing Republican, MAGA Trump supporter, and don't let him ever tell you otherwise, doing that whole little like, oh, I'm a milquetoast fence sitter, I don't actually care about this kind of stuff. He's doing the exact same thing that right-wingers are really pushing into right now, which is to scare you. Crime, violent crime, violent crime, violent crime. Now, if you get into the white supremacist section of the internet, you'll get the Alex Joneses who will tell you that it's black on white crime and that it's increased, in his own words, from 10 to 1 to 20 to 1. This is just white supremacist stormfront nonsense. Do not listen to that. White people more often than not kill white people. Black people more often than not kill black people. It has a lot to do with proximity. Most people are kind of, these groups are gentrified into certain areas, and that's where, the violence upon other groups is going to occur, stuff like that. But the idea of you have to be afraid and keep being scared, because you know what? If you're nice and scared, then you're all lubed up. We've lubed you up real good, and we can fucking finish you off, give you that sweet, sweet release if you vote Republican, because we're going to be tough on crime. Not like the other guy. This Fetterman guy, he's not tough on anything. He actually loves criminals. Something else that's, if we're still talking about this defund the police stuff, they didn't. Just can we be clear on that? They never defunded the police. In fact, the federal police budget increased. They gave them more money. And Joe Biden is a big friend of the police. He seems to talk about them in high reverence all the time. I'm not talking about Doug Brandon. I'm talking about Joe Biden. So this is not something that happened. The police were defunded, prisons were abolished, and then all of a sudden chaos fell upon the city. Denver successfully sent mental health professionals, not police, to hundreds of calls. Check this experiment out. Another U.S. city is reporting early success with a program that replaces traditional law enforcement responders with healthcare workers for some emergency calls. Previously, Denver 911 operators only directed calls to police or fire departments' first responders, but the Support Team Assistance Response, known as the STAR pilot program, created a third track for directing emergency calls to a two-person team, a medic and a clinician, staffed in a van from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekends. The STAR program, which launched in June, reported promising results in its first 6 months to report. The program aims to provide a person-centric mobile crisis response to community members who experience problems related to mental health, depression, poverty, homelessness, or substance abuse issues. And you don't have to look any further than the streets of, say, Vancouver. I recently reported on that story of an Indigenous person who was killed by the police, shot 6 times with bean bags because they were naked and erratic on the street. Turns out they had been pepper sprayed, and the reason they were naked and erratic was because they had ran into a store to grab milk to pour on their body to stop the burning, and were taking off their clothes because they thought that was adding to it. The police arrived and thought, of course, if you see a person who is naked and being like, I'm in excruciating, this person was in excruciating pain, and then was killed by the police while they were suffering in excruciating pain. That's a horrifying story. Is it one that could have been dealt with in a different way? way isn't one that could have been dealt with more understanding or context or anything like that, with someone else who could have been standing there being like, whoa, 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 he's not acting psychotic or violent. He's in excruciating pain right now. That's what the screams are. Look at his face, you know, like he had a clinician or even a medic with the police, right? Like the police can be fine, the enforcers of violence and justice. The medical clinicians are not trained or expected to do that, but could you have someone on site that would help you? Over 6 months of the pilot, Denver received more than 2,500 calls that fell into the STAR's program purview, and the STAR team was able to respond to 748 calls. No calls required the assistance of police, and no one was arrested. Denver police responded to nearly 95,000 incidents over the same period, and suggested that an expanded STAR program could reduce police calls by nearly 3%. Overall, the first 6 months of this kind has been a proof of concept of what we wanted. So, great results from the first experience with this in Denver. Denver is among several U.S. cities to develop this. In 2015, police have fatally shot 1,400 people with mental illnesses, according to a database. 1,400 people. So how many of those 1,400 people could have been saved had they been met with someone with medical training, a clinician, for example? There's other examples of this, by the way. This is not like a unique thing. Like police hiring social workers or police budgets being deferred into pilot programs like this.
Sit up, Lori. McDonald's CEO warns Chicago Mayor Lightfoot that soaring crime in burger giant's home city is leaving its corporate staff too terrified to return to its HQ. You need to do something about this. Fine. Don't do it. Don't care. Whatever. Let Republicans pounce.
People with untreated symptoms and mental illness account for more than 1 in 4 fatal police shootings.
Let them come in and they will win across the board. Not that I think people are going to be too happy. Republican leadership is fairly garbage. But even McDonald's is coming out being like, dude, we don't want it. Sorry. Crime's a problem. Okay. Do you think Lori Lightfoot, Illinois, you think they got the message? I can tell you they didn't.
Yeah, so it's pretty much exactly what I expected for that one. Trump's 40 subpoenas, civil war ramping up. Tim's fully gone on board with this, like, I'm going from, we have an impending civil war to we're in the middle of the civil war.
Here's the first story we have from the New York Times. Justice Department issues 40 subpoenas in a week, expanding its January 6th inquiry. It also seized the phones of 2 top Trump advisors, a sign of an escalating investigation 2 months before the midterm elections. Now this is like October surprise territory.
Oh my God.
They say we're not supposed to do anything 60 days before an election. Okay, well, they just did. And they're likely going to keep doing it. I think it's possible Trump gets indicted. I don't know for sure.
How much did you want to bet that Tim has barely watched any of the January 6th hearings and he's getting the majority of his information of it from the Daily Mail or from Andy No? That's pretty much what I would assume.
They say the seizure of the phones, coupled with a widening effort to obtain information from those around Mr. Trump after the 2020 election, represent some of the most aggressive steps the department has taken thus far in its criminal investigation into the actions that led to the January 6th assault on the Capitol by a pro-Trump mob. That's interesting. They said assault, not insurrection. The extent of the investigation has come into focus in recent days.
Debunked. When you watch that video they put together showing the timeline, syncing up so many of the events and also people reacting, people fucking footage, like drone footage of everyone just like looking down at their phones and then being like, like that kind of shit. It's like, yeah, it paints a very clear narrative.
Even though it has often been overshadowed by the government's legal clash with Mr. Trump and his lawyers over a separate inquiry, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now they're just kind of fluffing words up in this article. We get it. The big news is that they went after Trump. They went after Trump supporters and Trump allies and people working with Trump. So I guess, I don't know, is Banana Republic? Is this, we're going to have a free and fair election this November, or is the FBI interfering right now with the Republican Party?
The director of the FBI was appointed by Trump. He is a right-winger. He is a fucking ex-Bush administration right-winger. Motherfuckers. Like, how does anyone take this shit seriously?
This is a very dangerous escalation, which is being met with the Biden administration laying down the groundwork for really not just tough talk, but tough actions. We've seen Hillary Clinton just today compare Trump supporters to Al-Qaeda. We saw Kamala Harris on 9/11 at Ground Zero describe how threats against democracy should be treated like terrorists. We saw Biden on 9/11 also specifically say how terror victims should stand up for democracy. They're laying the groundwork for something very serious. I think they're acting like a scared animal that's being backed in a corner because everyone's telling people to vote Republican, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Joe Rogan. They're coming out and saying, hey, vote Republican. I think they see the Republicans as a threat. And I think when you have an animal that's in a corner, it could do anything and any.
Joe Rogan is a sentient piece of meatloaf. Okay, that's what Joe Rogan is doing. If you want to know what the moral compass of good old Joe is, he's basically like, well, it seems like the left, from what I can gather from my mostly right-wing conservative guests, is all about cancel culture. And I don't like cancel culture. I like freedom. And you know, soft men, hard times, soft cock, hard men. So because of that, I think Ron DeSantis, you know, the guy who's like basically okay with book banning language, banning LGBTQ plus people from existence, that dude, yeah, it seems like he's more about freedom. So I guess, yeah, I'll go with the freedom guy. There you go.
Moment, and I think the animal's afraid and it could bite, and I think there's going to be some larger consequences moving ahead as you know, their grip of power is slowly unleashing and you know, becoming loose.
No, you're 100% right. And, you know, to your question, I think it's the latter of the three. And the interesting thing about this is that all of this could have been avoided. There were speculations of irregularities in the, 2020 election, and if the appropriate
all of this could have been avoided. I mean, you're not wrong there. If Trump hadn't been a petulant man-child and hadn't lied to everybody and told them all, by the way, the election was stolen. I want it. I want country now, please. Can I have country? Fuck democracy. If he hadn't done that, yeah, then most likely, I'm sure this whole house of cards, I mean, slippery slope, but like at the end of the day, that's pretty much one of the biggest instigating forces that led to the attempted coup. Like there's like, if he had just accepted it, if he wasn't fucking holding rallies days before the coup, talking about how the election was stolen, how our country's been taken from us, Rudy Giuliani's up there like, oh, we did blood sacrifice. Fucking all the pundits are out there. Nick Fuentes is on the street. Alex Jones is on the street. All of them are like, yeah, we have to take our country back. We're Christian nationalists, all this kind of shit. If that hadn't happened, could have been avoided. Probably. Yeah. I mean, if the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and the 3%ers and all those other right-wing militias, white right-wing militias, I should add, if they weren't fucking doing Trump's bidding, if they weren't like, oh, yes, we must follow Daddy Trump into the ends of the earth, if the QAnoners hadn't been told by their fearless leader, yeah, probably could have lowered the temperature quite a bit.
People would have taken those allegations seriously, or those concerns seriously, and looked into it in a responsible way, then that would have evaded a lot of what ended up happening.
I agree.
So
yeah, they didn't though. A lot of the lawsuits were thrown out on standing, not the merits. And my attitude was, give them what they want, right? And because I'm like, the end result is likely going to be the same. There was a lot of crazy. I mean, it's crazy to me that you had,
give them what they want. What, democracy? The results of the election? Like, yeah, they were thrown out because they did not have merit. Rudy Giuliani running around like some fucking cartoon depiction of a lawyer, being like, we're taking them down, Dominion voting systems, Venezuela, fucking, we'll get them all, da-da-da. Like, Rudy Giuliani is one of my favorite stories, just because like he torpedoed any good graces he had left from being the mayor of 9/11. Like that, it's all gone now. Now he's like melty face, the pedo guy who like touches himself with minors in the room, slash fucking wasted all the time, bringing fucking people into courtrooms who have no business being there. Like the guy is just such a sideshow now, an absolute. Oh yeah, and we can't forget, and fucked his cousin. But that, I think that one was kind of like, that was lost to history. But just wild, absolutely wild. But yeah, Tim, the Republican governors themselves would not do Trump's bidding. Like they got to a point where it's like, we can't lie about this. We can't just give you the country. Like, like the closest we could do is maybe try bringing this to the Supreme Court, and we'll pull another Bush too. We could go for that route, I guess. The Supreme Court will definitely vote in your favor. That'll probably be a better one. But like, we're not just going to say that these numbers aren't the numbers they are.
Had people coming out talking about Venezuelan servers and gunfights in Germany and satellites stealing data. And I'm like, okay, guys, come on. Like, say, oh, okay, let's hear what you have to say and let people hear that because that's going to get dismissed immediately. Instead, we just got procedural grounds, which I don't know. I got to be honest. Maybe what they really wanted was discontent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you take a look at January 6th, there were cops opening the door for people. Yeah. So maybe they were thinking like, we could quash this, but maybe we want them all riled up so they act a fool and then we can make them look bad.
Well, they're also invested into this. And I think this is more of a fishing operation than an actual investigation, because usually when you have, you know, the FBI going after somebody, there usually is a crime. But to go after the supporters, we don't know exactly who these individuals are, but this is all related to January 6th. Okay, how far away from that date are we specifically? And
This is great. Oh, hold on. I gotta put this joke on blast. Call my pussy 9/11 because that shit is all Bush. Bravo. Is that original?
And what do they have? They might not have anything, but with these subpoenas, they might be investigating, trying to find something. That's because funny. I think they're desperate for something to blame the Republicans on.
No,
and
sorry.
I'm not a Trump supporter.
Okay. Well, hey,
to me, what's happening
honest.
is extremely scary, and it's really bringing us to a very desperate situation in this next upcoming election that is dangerous for everyone.
Well, this is how you know it's a cult, because they'll call you, Luke, a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
Even when you're like, I don't like the guy, but this is crazy. They'll be like, you like Trump.
I called him out during his presidency. I think anyone in power should be held accountable. But again, what's happening here to Trump?
You know what's so funny? I mean, like, it would probably take such a long time, but if we went back to like 2000 Trump, like how many Trump bad videos do you think there actually is? Like, how far back would we have to scroll through? Oh, with stories, this would take forever. He uploads so much. I'm only at a month right now. I have to get to years. None yet. Going on Jank. GOP votes to block Dem bill to raise debt ceiling. The U.S. is facing default. Still no criticism. Biden wants dishonorable discharges for troops who refuse vaccine. Americans do not think Biden is mentally fit to lead the country. Seems still pretty anti. Oh, Shoe on Head. Shoe on Head canceled a chance to podcast with Alex Jones. I remember that episode. Biden vows to get governors out of the way who object to vaccine mandates. Still pretty anti-Biden. Don't see any criticism of Trump. No, like there's barely any discussion of Trump, period, except to praise his like social media platforms. Still no Trump. No Trump. Brittany changes to Catholicism. No Trump. MR anti-Biden stuff. Oh, here's a Trump story. The left crossed the line when Trump was deplatformed. Oh, okay. Still going. Anti-Biden. Canada vaccines. Pro Glenn Greenwald story. Anti-Biden. By the way, oh, a Trump story. CNN blames Trumpism for Reddit Wall Street chaos. Fucking CNN. How could you? How could someone look at Tim Pool's catalog and not say that he's a right-winger? I like, get me a single normie who knows at least about Trump, Biden, Hillary Clinton, you know, some things like the bare minimum, and then be like, do you think this person is left-wing or right-wing? Who do you think? Okay, we're 2 years ago. All right, so this is when Trump is really getting into stuff. Trump nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize again, but the media tries to cancel it. It's not really a criticism of Trump. Hate on Biden. What will happen to the mainstream media if Trump loses? But what about the critiques? Trump makes ominous comments about powerful enemies being less visible. The 2020 election is going to be fun. Dems keep proving Trump right. Donald Trump is flawed, but he's the only option for these times. I guess this one is the closest you could say to a critique of Donald Trump, as in an endorsement. People need to place a rally to make positive cultural change. Liberals say they're voting for Trump. Facebook deletes viral video. So they're lying, by the way. They're 100%. They've never really critiqued Trump once. We're at 2 years ago. Every single story about Trump is absolute praise of him. Oh, and this is 3 years ago. I'm almost ready for van life on the ground. Road trip van tour. Oh, so this is as far back as it goes. We're at the very beginning of the channel, the Timcast IRL channel, before he started Timcast IRL. So yeah, that's the sum total of every video. So Inspection says, no, Tim does not critique Donald Trump. Tim did not critique Donald Trump when Donald Trump was in power. Tim did not critique Donald Trump when he was at the height of his power. Tim continued to critique Joe Biden prior and leading up to the election. And Tim is now acting as a mouthpiece for wanting the return of Donald Trump. He is just 100% a right-wing pundit. I'm sorry. Like, Adam and Sitch, anyone else who's been pushing back on that against me, here's your data. The data you see before you. This is the entirety, the sum total of his Timcast RL channel. You would be very hard pressed to find a genuine critique of Donald Trump in this catalog somewhere. And I do miss Weed Lord, you know? I don't know if Moon Lord has become too strange in the process.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demo, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.